Hi, I'm Jamey Stegmeyer from Stonemeyer Games, and I'm here today to talk about my favorite game mechanism in Fallout 4 and in Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series, which is a book series, not a game. You'll see the connection in a minute. This video is going to be a little different. I use these videos to kind of to talk about games and mechanisms that are on my mind right now. And in this case, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is a game that I haven't even played. It's Fallout 4. It's a video game that came out last week, and it's very popular. I've been reading a lot about it. A couple of my friends are really excited about it. They've been playing it nonstop. And whenever that happens with a game, I'm generally just fascinated by why people are drawn to it. Especially because as an outsider to the video game world, I don't play Xbox or PlayStation or any of those games, any of those platforms. It's fascinating to me when a game rises to that level of awareness that I even know about it. Because from my perspective, there are tons of games on those platforms where you walk around in first person and shoot stuff, right? There's tons of games like that. So I'm always curious, like, why people get excited about a certain type of that game over the others. And so I've been reading a lot about Fallout 4 and talking to my friends about it too, about what's interesting about it. And my friends have given me different ideas. Like I asked my friend Dustin the other day why he's really enjoying it, and he says he kind of just likes to walk around and shoot stuff, but he also loves being distracted by all the little side missions. So he might know that he has an objective and he could like walk in a straight line and go deal with that in like 30 minutes. But instead, like on the way there, he encounters all this other stuff where he goes and has a little side mission here and there. And so that's interesting. And I think that ties into the element that I'm really fascinated about, which I guess it's kind of two elements. I've been reading a lot on Kotaku. Patricia Hernandez has been writing most of their articles about Fallout 4. A really great writer. She has a YouTube channel too, and it's really interesting to hear her perspective. And one of the things that she keeps talking about in her review and the other articles is the lore, the greater like lore of Fallout 4, not lure, lore, Lore. And I've seen this on a lot of other YouTube videos too. There's a great video, it's like a 5 or 6 minute video that talks all about the world of Fallout 4. And really it's great storytelling, which is what it appears to be. The creators of this world in Fallout 4, like all the little things you do aren't arbitrary. There's a story behind them that's connecting all these different things. And because of the format, the idea that these people are in these Fallout shelters and your character in different games, like Fallout 5 will probably follow a different character who's released from their Fallout shelter at a different time. And that guy or girl will come out and discover what the world has become, and they'll learn more about that lore. And that's just really fascinating to me, that kind of a major draw of a game isn't necessarily the graphics or like how big the guns are, or the upgrade system or the reward system, all of which I think are assets to the game. But rather in this case, it's the element of discovery of why the world is the way it is and how everything is connected to it. That's just fascinating to me, and I think it's pretty rare in a game where you have that sense of lore that you're discovering over the course of many games. Now, for example, this came to mind the other day when I was playing Forbidden Desert, my favorite cooperative game. And in Forbidden Desert, you don't ever really have to look at the art on the tiles. There are symbols on the tiles that tell you what's going on. But every now and then, maybe I'm a little bored, I'm waiting for someone else to make their decision on their turn, and I'll actually look at the art. And it's kind of like an aha moment. Oh, there's art on that tile. And like when I was playing the other day, I looked at one of the tiles, and there's this really cool piece of art of kind of these what are they called? They're greenhouses. It's a series of greenhouses in the desert, and it was just this moment of kind of wonderment. I was looking at this art, and I was like, I wonder what happened here. Like, why were there greenhouses? Why are they shut down? Why are they no longer operational? And I should give credit to the artist there for bringing out that sense of wonderment, like what happened there. And so I do think that games, through their art, they have this sense of lore that you can pay attention to if you want to. And for me, I played Forbidden Desert 20, 30 times at this point. I've never really noticed that piece of art. So there is a moment of discovery there when I see it. But I also think that as game designers, especially in the cardboard space, I think maybe we neglect the lore, especially in terms of how players discover it from game to game. Because normally when you play a board game, you see everything the first time you play it. Or maybe there aren't cards that come out that time. Maybe you don't see those cards to the second or third game, but pretty quickly you see everything that's in the game. You know all of whatever the world is that the designer was trying to create. And I wonder if we can do a little bit more than that. And obviously, I know I talk about legacy games a lot in these videos, and I think there could be legacy elements here where you are unraveling elements of the lore from game to game, but it doesn't have to be full all-out legacy. It could just be like a little bit of new knowledge that you learn on subsequent games that you didn't know the first time you played. I know this isn't a very clean video here. I'm just talking to the camera here, but it's been on my mind a lot lately, and I think there's potential for board games to have an evolving sense of discovery of the lore. And part of that, I think, comes down to us taking the time to actually create a cohesive, dynamic, and interesting story that evolves over time. And something that came to mind when I was thinking about this, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the video, was Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series, which I got into a few months ago. It's a book trilogy that's now evolved into, I think, 2 trilogies. I'm through book 5, where it stops. But in the first trilogy, it's a cohesive set trilogy, and there are, like, from the very beginning, he plants the seeds of what's the greater lore of the world. I mean, I'm talking about lore here, so he's talking about the greater mysteries of this world. You know that these mysteries exist, but you don't know what they mean yet. And that thread is one of the big things that keeps you reading. And along the way, you learn to love the characters, and you learn to love his magic system, and you learn to get drawn into the plots. But one of the major things that keeps you reading from book to book through book 1 to book 3 is that you want to know why this world is the way it is, and if it can be fixed, and what everything means, like the reasons behind all these mysterious things that he's planted the seeds for along the way. And I love that about a well-written trilogy, whether it's or any TV series, a movie trilogy, a single movie, a single book, a book trilogy. And so we have all these other forms of art that are very good at creating lore and keeping you engaged because of the lore, but not really in the board game space. And I'm probably discrediting some key games that I hope you mention in the comments that do this really, really, really well. I'd love to hear about them. And Pandemic Legacy, which I talked about recently, is kind of that, but Pandemic Legacy is more like forward thinking, like this, like you're in the present and then something else happens and then something else happens. And a few of those things tie back to things that happened before you started playing the game that you kind of learn about. But it's really slight. This isn't a knock on Pandemic Legacy, but I'm using that as an example because I think that is a game that tells an evolving story in the same way that Mistborn tells an evolving story. But Mistborn, like it's like an iceberg where you're like the tip of the iceberg is the story itself, and what's under the surface is this monumental history and lore that has built this world that you get to interact with in that little piece at the top of the iceberg. And so I'd love to explore this space more in games where theme is important, obviously, to the game and the world building, but where where you're learning things along the way that increase your awareness of the lore and maybe even build up to like in the same way that the Mistborn books work, where you're dropped little hints of like where you're wondering what's going on here, what happened here, what does this mean, why is this the way it is, and then the more often you play the game, the more you learn about what those things are, the more you get answers to those questions, and maybe there is a finish. And this is the nice thing in comparison to a legacy game. This could be like an element of the game that you learn from game to game, and eventually you'll reach a completion of the lore side of it, like the storytelling side of it, but it's almost separate from the game itself. Maybe it could have like very small impacts on it, but that way you could keep playing the game afterward, after you know the full story. I think that's feasible. Not that people need to play games 10, 20, 30 times, but at least the possibility is there. Anyway, I know this is a long video of me just kind of blabbering about this idea of lore, but it's been on my mind. It's fascinating to me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about other games that you can think of that have elements of lore that you learn about that really hook you, or if you have any ideas of how games can do this better, so that game designers like me can incorporate better elements of evolving and unraveling lore into our games. Thanks for your thoughts. I look forward to reading the comments on this one.